an MFA in creative writing from Emerson College and currently teaches poetry workshops at Southern New Hampshire University. Hi, Priscilla. In 2015, she was a feature reader at the Abroad Writers Conference in Dublin, Ireland. Her poems have appeared in numerous publications, including Blue Stem Magazine, The Cafe Review, Flycatcher, The Light Ekphrastic, Nix's Mate Review, Off the Coast, The Tower Journal, and a Nancy Drew anthology put out by Silver Birch Press. Her chapbook book, Learning the Names, was published by Finishing Line Press in 2015. In her second collection, Starland, Jessica Purdy not only continues to gain psychic traction on those infinitely felt memories I once talked up their knack for unfolding with the logic of dreams, but also demonstrates an even fuller command of language and just enough of the stuff matter that asks to be caseworked into poetry, all of it carried out with remarkable skill and care. These latest installments make up for ground thought lost and thought not grounded with the same old wires we've ill-advisedly relied. They take measure of this liminal territory with a yet unheard register degree of intensity, sometimes getting a read and sometimes just letting them sound off on their own, like the tightrope acts, talismans that they are. And we're so happy to have Jessica Purdy with us tonight.
Thanks, Mark. I always love your introduction. I had a book launch not long ago. When was it? November 30th or something. And so I feel like I've just read all these poems, but I'm going to try not to overlap if anybody was at that reading. Can you hear me now? Okay. I'd like to start with, this one's called Beach Houses in Snow. Beach houses in snow. There is so much weight, it covers memory. Scentless sun, snow like soap, shuttered shingles and their dim interiors. Bereft, even the sand beneath is numb. I imagine people emerging out of the salt spray. That I've had children has nothing to do with me or bravery. I seek any living thing. Find the only motion is waves. What has frozen over merely seems like permanence, but could be chance. The way wind can carry something, whether it wants to go or not. So that was written for Rye Beach. I'm sure, Bob, you recognize that right about now. Yeah. My son says, soon the moon will display the flashing lights of human disturbance, experimental explosions we will see from Earth. I'm trying to articulate how the full moon's light on snow makes it clear we are living on a planet. Our heads and roofs jutting out into space, but storms take my words away on a wind that's traveled here from everywhere else. It's expensive to love when it's so often a risk. What news doesn't enrage us? That we blunder on into this misted over violence, startled just when we were feeling so swaddled. His excitement baffles me. I'm resistant to change, progress. I love the moon as if it was a parent, and see it that way, constant, immortal. Nothing would make me enjoy that sight, I say, and then I wonder if I've already sent him away to his own planet, where he can hover over, a pinprick of light I can track from down here among the trees and birds who've never counted on me. So a lot of the poems in here have my themes of parenting in them. This is one of them, and it was based on an exercise where you copy the lines of someone else's poems and you respond to each one. And this was an Akhmatova poem that I was responding to. Has nothing to do with her original poem, but it sort of takes the form of what she had written. It's called Cape Cod, Massachusetts. The ocean borders this thin strip of bony arm. Ospreys work the currents of sky, dive the vortex into its dim dime shine. What is overarching, deeper, higher, the raptors' sleek bodies steal, slip their feathers between breezes, make this vast world small. Their solitary journey south starts suddenly, over the Straits of Florida to South America and back again, where they mate for life. Nests high atop man-made boxes survey Wychmere Harbor's ruffled water, patterned with boats whose masts clang with metal sea sound. One waits, the other vaults into the air and screeching searches the shift of layered fathoms, the great metallic sheen, and the black jutting jetty, a backbone dividing the safe from the rough. A transitory gray overhead, as on our wedding day, where all our guests believed in promises. But down in the matter of the poet's mind, like a tattoo pen's staccato spirals, fear stitches its itchy thread. Our child, that scratched up gem, each day readies to migrate away from the magnetic light of home. Okay, so this one is about a dream. So I have a lot of dream poems, and I sort of take them as they're given to me, and I try to repeat them in poems. And this one is the one that my mother called me about. She was like, "Are you okay?" Because it's very bizarre. She thought it was real, like it had really happened. So it's called Cold-Blooded, and May, you might recognize yourself in it. Cold-Blooded. The tiny frog dipped in white yogurt, hopped through the library, showed its pattern of thought. My daughter has been out all night on her own at age 9. This is concerning, but I come back to the home where we are staying to take a picture of their turtle, only to find she had eaten him, shell and all except the face. Then she wanted to eat a giant white grub that wriggled like a muscled tongue under the dull edge of the butter knife. The owners came home and asked, "Who told you you could eat turtle?" We were outside now, amidst large rock formations. The one that fit my body rocked like a rocking chair. So I guess in dreams there's a lot of puns that happen, and I really liked that. The rock was a rocking chair. So I think that's where it came from.
You must have been really hungry.
It don't make any sense.
Whatever you got out of the poem, that's what it made me feel. This one's called My Daughter Asks, What Happened the First Time It Rained. Arid gasp of sun-dusted curtains. Oh, to be a willow in this wind, with reedy limbs that brush and sway as if fingers have just strummed them. Instead, I hear the wave-slapped gray bulk of hull, and doves moan in a parody of mourning. We have no language for what befalls us. Everything cloaked in white chiffon begins to dot darker, stains every thirsty thing. A punch of purple crocus, the bravest of babies. Forsythia blossoms vibrate like a blur of bees' breath. Daffodils' moody crowns dip to the dewed grass, and we in our hotbed of frustration can't help but hear each pinprick of isolation. Tap the glass like our fear of it ending, of something else coming. A low rumble just under our hearing, sensed as an increasing ache until it bursts, then quiets. And now we know what that was. We've spindled up through that slaking, tendrils that curl and weave our flesh into quenched organs that flower helplessly into fruit. Remember what the title was? Anybody? What happened the first time it rained?
Sloth.
What's wrong?
I just can't do it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It was when I tried.
Somebody will try to get in.
Yeah, I think that when they close this one down.
I have no idea how much time I have.
Get the breath back in there.
Okay.
You need a super.
This is called What I Love About Dreams. They're open corridors, narrow to muddy birth canals, until I find myself flung up to hover in a sudden sky, then skim upon eddies and whirlwinds down a sea of vortices. Their town center has a waterfall only the brave have navigated. It begins at the Churchill, winds through town, down through the boulders' elephant heads to the mobile homes' asphalt. Their landmarks recur, a past home or church, theater, or school, but the architect has put an ocean in the basement. It's okay. I like it better this way, with secret slides and doors that have never been, but have always been open. Theirs is the lodgment of memory forgotten, bringing back the glint of green from those glass marbles we'd thumb down the channels of exposed oak roots. Click the tiny globes of each of our worlds against each other, as if they were the only reality. Here's one also about parenting and dreaming. The mystery of footprints. At the top of a mountain, there is a blue-green lake, so clear you can see all the way to the bottom, where boulders are spotted with some dream lichen, cold water, and children on the opposite shore tossing in stones. At my feet, a mystery, tiny tracks in the snow. What animal made them? How did I get here? My son wakes me. I don't want to help him. He's nervous. He's had a nightmare. Can't even go back to bed on his own. I take him there, trying to hold on to the feeling of that delicious water. I ask him about his bad dreams. He tells me robbers came in and stole me away from him. I share my dream to soothe him. He says, "Night," before I'm finished. The mystery of footprints still unsolved. This is Starland. This is the title poem. Starland is a word that came to me in a dream while my husband's mother was, she was dying, and the dream had a headstone in it, and the word on it was Starland. An epitaph seen on a headstone in a dream cemetery. Is this where you went? In my darkened bedroom one night when you were dying, I saw light through a squint of tears, like a transmission winking out. I thought I was seeing the exact moment of your death. You lived for 2 more days. Cars and people kept passing even after. The fire in the trees, not yet lit then, now sparks in the mists of mornings I can't grasp. I can't hold in my vision any scene on the verge of change. Any autumn meadow with horses grazing heads. Their placement is as random as if dropped from somewhere high up. Their backs, studded with sunlit dew, seem to hover between the slats in the fence that divides us. And this is like a New Year's poem called Can You Hear Me? The quiet are listening, hearing silence. Nothing will happen today, or everything I fear might. Calamity or that redundant inertia. What will it be? A gong rings in the new year. Vibration slides over everything. If I stay still, asleep, or awake, nothing can be provoked. What is said about this? I'm one of many. I love those people who can lift up even the most dying person, make a day seem like what it was meant for, not this. A couple more, or just one more?
2 more, yeah.
Okay. This one's kind of a wacky, like inner head voice that I just kind of let go. I don't know if you ever experienced like driving late at night and your head kind of goes in weird ways. So it's called Voice While Driving. My mouth does an Iggy Pop. Eyes sore from dripping wrinkle cream. Knees brittle, in and out. The road will give you a sore back. This is how it goes. Peering through the dark for the familiar in other people's homes, or the unexpected, wondering if tonight's the night you'll hit the bear that lumbers straight out of your imagination and into your headlights. You think I won't turn this wheel straight into the guardrail? I'm a fanatic of songs that distract me back to the moon of my childhood. Like a fragrance, it follows me, appears slashed in half, both as small and as large as a floater in the aging eye. Okay, so one more, and that will be it. It's called The Poem She Never Wrote. The poem she never wrote was born past midnight. Stood stopped in the freezing foyer of a college friend's rented house, looking out the sidelight windows at the full moon that struck so hard, and thought, I must be written when she gets home. Instead, she stayed out late and forgot the connection between the way the moon looked and the glass through which she saw it. Antique, and therefore warped like memory or age. And then she had papers to write, and graduation to attend, and a boyfriend to marry, and babies to birth. But she never forgot the image of that white moon through glass. She thinks about it at night before falling asleep, what she had meant to do all those years ago. What had been so important about the way the air froze coming out of her mouth and fogged the vision? It's almost enough to stop her worries. For growing up children asleep in their beds, this poem that never was.
Okay, I usually ask the same question, so in a different way, but I don't want to kind of overplay the importance of dreams in your poems, but it is there. So my question is that from most people, I would imagine, most people pull from their conscious life more often than their subconscious, or I shouldn't say subconscious, unconscious. Uh, and then we have to grapple with the idea of how much of that raw material do we allow to, we're thinking about making it in some way, charging it with kind of a dreamlike quality at times. I mean, we're moving away from the literal and more into the imaginative. In your sense, I mean, it seems like the opposite. But then I'm wondering, thinking about like the trigger in town, whereas, is this material, do you have more an allegiance, are you more married to this dream material than you ever, because does it have this talismanic quality where you feel like you can't betray it, or is it kind of the same as real life?
It's not the same. It doesn't come to me the same way. I feel like the dream imagery comes without me working on it or thinking about it or, placing myself on top of it,
Are you asleep?
when I'm dreaming.
No, and no.
Right now? No, I'm not asleep right now. I don't think I am.
Some writers, they remember it in the morning and they'll write it down. Others wake up and keep it 5% of it.
I pretty much remember my dreams. Sometimes I'll forget if I don't write it down right away, but oftentimes they're so powerful that I remember them. And they seem to sort of become more important as the day goes on. Like if it seems like it's going to end up in a poem, it's going to last longer in my mind. But
So
for instance, I had one the other night. Totally bizarre. You know the song, the Wham song, "Wake Me Up Before You Go." So that song is playing in my dream, right? And I'm dancing to it, and I'm kicking up sand. There's sand all over the place, but I'm also kicking sand in the faces of zombies that are everywhere. All right, so, and I've had zombie apocalypse dreams before, but this one was like terrifying, but also this song is playing and I'm dancing, so that's bizarre. But I probably won't end up having that in a poem because I don't know how that would translate. But sometimes I feel like the dream is just there, and if I write it down, it means something. It ends up meaning something.
So,
you know what I mean? I don't know if I'm answering.
My question is, do you find yourself more faithful to your dream imagery or to your real life, or they're both?
I think they're both. I use them both equally.
Like, like Richard Hugo says, if you have it's a pretty lame, but if you have a brown house in real life, but in the poem you need to turn it into a blue house, you turn it into a blue house.
Right.
In a dream, I would think, because the house is brown, you might think it has more importance because it's a dream.
Right.
Like the brown house of your childhood, you might say, yeah, who knows about my child? Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
But in your dream, you're thinking, I'm being fed this by, this is coming direct from the zombies.
Right.
So I have to, so in some guys, I almost feel like you have to have more faithful to your dreams than reality.
Yeah.
Because you feel like these things are omens.
Yeah.
And you can't.
And those are the ones that end up in poems. Those are the ones that seem like they're.
No wonder your mother called.
She was like, should I be concerned? She's like, I don't think May is like that. My granddaughter wouldn't do that.
Any other questions?
She did the Thriller dance.
She did do the Thriller.
That's right. That might have spurred it.
I asked this other writer, do you have a writing practice? Meaning I do a certain every day, certain then. I know some people write every day, they use whatever the fitness club use.
I know people do that, and I don't. I'm more of I get held accountable by my workshop groups, so a lot of times I'll I'll make sure that I have something for the group but also I write when something strikes me. So either it'll be brewing for a while in my mind, or I'll write a little bit about it or something, an idea. But mostly it comes and I write it down. It's more like that than a lot of like plotting or like free writing or anything like that.
It's been about a year and a half since the last book, I think, maybe.
2 years.
Is that the time frame for the material in this book that's been written in the last 2 weeks?
No, a couple of them, like the ones about the Mystery of Footprints one, that was from like 2008. So yeah, some of them have reached back a little bit further.
Including the book, did they have a line? Did they evolve?
Not really. I mean, a lot of the ones that were older had been published in journals, so I kept them the way they were. Well, it's nice to have the acknowledgments page say where they were published. So. Yeah.
So I thought it was interesting you said your dreams took on more importance as the day went on.
Sometimes they do, yeah.
And I think most of us, it doesn't necessarily, you have this certain parameter and then it's like sloughed off like dead skin. So is that because you add meaning to it because it bugs you all day long and you're trying to figure it out? Is that why? And so you add like more meaning to it because you're figuring it out, or?
I think it's because if the dream stays with me that long, that it feels like it's more of a gift. It's more of a, oh, I need to keep this one. It's gonna have an effect.
I'll be asking this one. Would you say you're adding flesh, or did they go through it to be created?
Flesh?
Flesh. Or would you say you're adding cosmetics? In other words, it comes to a point where you have to write it, and it's evolved from the dream. Is it adding flesh to it? In other words, and we all realize, most of us, that if we can hold on to the dream in sort of add things onto it, because of the evolution of the mind, of what you say.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't have color, maybe it was red.
Well, I think there's like one of my poems called Amazing Story. It uses a dream as a sort of way of interpreting a news story that I read. So it's about this piano factory that blows up in a gas explosion, and the man who worked in the piano factory or lived near it or something, the pianos fall, they blow up into the sky and they fall around him and protect him, and he doesn't get killed. And so that became that was like, oh, that's an interesting news story. And then I had this dream about this door that like fell out of the sky, and so it sort of became this rumination on love, the beloved. I think I wrote it for Kimberly's Poet Laureate project. Remember that beloved? Were you? The beloved, the orphan, what were the other ones? I can't remember. Outlaw. Yeah. Yeah.
It sounds as though that should be the dream.
The pianos, I know. It's so surreal.
It's like reading your lines.
So, well, thank you for all the questions.
Reader tonight is Cleo.
I decided number 2.
There's no one.
I'm Cleone Graham Kittery. One of the things I like about reading here is I can actually read poems that I'm working on. I can say that. You go to the hoot, you're not allowed to say a thing. So I feel like I have to present completely finished poems. Where did Jessica go? Good Jessica, you reminded me. I just had it. I usually have nightmares and I don't mean, what are you doing over here? I had a dream this last week. Steve Bannon.
Oh, God,
A dream, and he was a zombie type character, and I was jumping on his chest, up and down, jumping on it, and he began to become bigger and bigger and bigger until he exploded, and a lot of Steve Bannons fell out of the sky. That's why I was, like, raining iguanas, I think, that I read about in Florida, got that one going.
Oh, yeah.
But who the hell dreams about Bannon? It was a repulsive dream.
What came out of it when?
Little Steve.
Oh, in Florida, they had a freezing cold, and all these iguanas were falling out of the trees.
So iguanas came out of him?
No, more of him came out of him.
Huh.
Little mini bloated, red-faced, puffy Steve Bannons. The other thing I like about being able to say here, and you spoke about dreams and reality, is my dreams my poems are not autobiographical, and a lot of people assume they are. And when I'm putting together in the front of my notebooks, when I die, my kids will find them, it says, none of the subject matter people have changed and no, all coincidence, all that kind of thing. Because otherwise they're going to think, I've been screwing monsters, basically, sometimes.
Well, you got your title of your next book.
Screwing monsters? This is all of these are pretty much in one of them. I'd like to write about how the moon slips between cattail stalks, stark strips of light like prison bars on a dungeon dark pond, hiding the neglected, the unknown, except to the pickerel, red finning unseen. I'd like to write about how, hunkered under the leafless hydrangea, the cottontail's ears provide little protection from the sharp-eyed hawk circling above. I'd like to write about how no mirror can be held to reflect the dark lining of the night I ran shoeless through the shattered door of the lampless room. It's not autobiographical. No. I'd smash anybody before they could smash me. May I read one more? Little one?
Of course.
I don't like that one. Well, John Michael Albert says that I write something called witness poems, and I didn't even know what they were until he gave me this huge volume of poems. I mean, I've never had any classes or anything, so I just write. I don't have a choice. This is called Out There in the Computational Universe. Glaciers melt near doorsteps of wet tin shanties in an unknown place. The faceless fail to recognize leering waters, their island disappearing. Glass-eyed children relocated, never know home. Allocated ancestors, trees and bones, swallowed alone, abandoned by Range Rovers and Viking ranges in gourmet kitchens with fancy fixtures, trophies on hills high above sea level. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next reader is Karen Burnett.
Thank you, Jessica. Thanks for. So I'm going to just read one poem, and it's called "Gravity Darkening" is the title. The midnight wind thrillingly chills my face as dogs pound their voices blocks away. I consider that vast space between you and me, how the obliterated new moon shows a galaxy in clarity. A surrounding sharpness forms when one enters or exits this magnitude. Happy birthday to you. Statistics prove a person is more likely to die on that day than any other. I walk through a church parking lot, expansive and supermassive. Beneath a streetlight, a fist-sized toad feasts on bugs. His marbleized eyes are petrified, amber-like, paralyzed. What defines his universal design, schematics, forces, burdens? Hours later, you will black out and fracture your skull against the tile floor. A dark matter halo loosens you, vision crashing into specular reflection. Did you know that the Milky Way contains light scattering of thousands of billions of stars and planets? A pulse proceeds beneath all this. Insect clouds swarm with electric recoil, parsing air. Is it gravity darkening or beholding velocity? In this penitent nighttime, hindsight tells me what becomes lost must be relived as if bioluminescence. Thank you.
Skip Manning, you are next.
Are you reading tonight, Mark?
That's enough for you. No.
Not that many. That's my job.
No, it's my night to absorb.
Somebody brought up Mike Albert. A long time ago, I remember Mike saying that after you're done with reading a chapbook, you can always use it to level your chair. I've got about 5 of these if anybody needs to level their chair. This is,
Better than a matchbook. Better
Right.
than a matchbook.
right. Anyway, so I've got 5 or 6 of these if anybody wants them. I've been reading Yeats, and so my ballads are tending to get serious. This is the ballad of the shift change. The day was unusual, like any other day in school, when I sat overlooking the parking lot. It was almost time at the scene of the crime to watch the changing of the plot. My pal and I had just burned one high, and the day was looking rosy. So I torched the roach and proceeded to coach the ending of the long story. The first long act was settling back and watching the 4 new players. The company had a history of adding on new layers, like a junior boss getting his tired butt tossed and a new tie showing up. The actors changed, but the set never rearranged, and there was always drinks in the cup. Act 2 began when the kids all ran to get their cars out the parking spots. Down by the stop sign, they settled out fine to get out into traffic and discover their lot. The afternoon train could cause some pain, as the thirsty kids had to let it through. They had no doubt that getting the product out was the least that they could do. The shift walking in was mean and sin, the part of the spine that gets sat on. Some would forget the light and the sun set when they stepped out into the green dawn. The work was all, and the brick front wall kept the world and the wolves away for now. But you could never escape the cruel grip of fate when it came to the outsides and the question how. Oops, that's not supposed to print that way. How could you be in debt more deeply when all night you hadn't spent a single cent? Where did it go? What did you have to show to prove where your hours had went? Why was the weight and the sharp blade of fate conspiring against those kids and me to make a guy who was just trying to get by see into the future so hopelessly? I strolled down from my perch above the nave of the church, down the stairs from the cafeteria, say good night to the boss as he picked up his cross, and I strolled out into this area. I met my good friend as the day's hell ended, and we spilled a brew or two, and we lied as we cried about there being a day when his life of shadows would be through. So we pried apart, and I rode with a broken heart home to the wife and kid, hoping for hope as I coughed up the dope, and the life cycled through like it always did. And that's the way this 3-act play went on until the curtains closed, And that is why I passed the theater by, waiting for answers, those questions posed. Thank you.
It's hard to pick one, but I'm going to read one that I'm not going to be reading on Saturday. Read two. This is kind of a medium length one, so I guess it has some meat in it. It's called Infinitesimal, and it really came about from an idle day of just staring at the dictionary and walking through and reading. I got caught in the eyes, and I noticed that the word infinitesimal is right next to infinity, and that just spun out into a poem. What do you make of the woman eating French fries late at night after her husband has gone to bed? What do you make of the husband lying awake in bed listening for clues to happiness? And what do you make of me thinking in the second person this way, shifting to third and asking the ceiling, but who is she anyway? And where is love in the brain? And why is love in the brain? And why is it that I long to have lived through a war, any war, where I would have kept a small cryptic diary for my children to decipher years later on a winter's night? I try whispering in the dark, I love you beyond belief, and imagine her face as she opens the box and sees, what? A striped cotton dress, some shiny elegant thing on a shiny elegant chain, an official parchment announcing that a whale or a star or a Vancouver Island marmot or an acre of Sumatran rainforest or a placid-eyed manatee slow rolling in the mangrove swamps off the Florida Keys has been preserved in her sweet name. It's so hard to find the center 5 years after divorce and 1 year into a new marriage, here in the dark, with a stick of moonlight slashing across the floor and then fading out as the clouds roll in. I should be asleep, my body twisted and limp, my breath the unconscious breath of the animal I am. We should be asleep, spooned and drooly and warm. A word I bumped into today is ideogram, ideas as graphic symbols. Example, percent sign or ampersand, or the big head scratcher, sign for infinity. What should be the ideogram for hope, or tongue-tied, or that sneaky feeling that you are an agnostic even as you pray? Right down the street is idioblast, strictly speaking a specialized cell that differs from the cells around it. But this is not a word that walks easily on a leash. It needs to run, to roam, to pee on distant shrubs. It's dying to be taken out of context. It's comforting somehow to spend the time among the eyes, to drift among all the gorgeous stuff within. You can't help but laugh. You can't help but marvel at how so many of these words combat each other as if jockeying for attention like puppies. Consider, ill-humored, illuminate, if, imbecile, immaculate, intone, intoxicate, inquisitive, inquisition, innuendo, insatiable, insecure, insomnia, intercourse, intrude, interlude, itch, iron, irrational, Ivan the Terrible, itsy bitsy, idle, idle, idle. You just want to gather these words up in a laundry sack, pocket a few like worry stones to paw over on long walks in the forest of self-forgiveness, and pale the rest on public fences. It's a Monday night, lots of heavy, low clouds heaving about the neighborhood now. Brutes. But I'm not unhappy. This is the state that puzzles me so often, being not unhappy. That and the simmering need to know what is juxtaposed. Consider the two of us, the moonlight and its penumbra, infinitesimal infinity. I'll do one more. Thank you. This is a shorter poem called Colloquy, and it's the closing poem in the book. The sea shifts and the wind and the sand, such polyrhythms, this earthly agitation. Among the billion stars and straying planets, stretching out multitudes of light years, plowing into the on and on emptiness, searchlighting. How such a restless mess could pause long enough to hammer out the blueprint of a cell, then multiply it, add flagella, flippers, fins, gills, lungs, the whole gamut of sensoria, is beyond me. But I admire the unfailing desire to crawl out. Above the sea, blustered about, gannets circle and rise and arc across the sky, fold in their wings and plummet, bright white darts piercing the slate-green rolling waves. Such a gorgeous, splattering response, this syncopated wing dip and rise of body and heart, this inhale and exhale of pure hungering after.
Every relationship. In every relationship, there's one who falls asleep quickly and one who watches the other fall asleep. In every relationship, there are two trains. Up ahead where they can't see, one track goes under the mountain, the other goes around it. In every relationship, there's one who thinks rainbow sprinkles taste different from the chocolate ones, and one who thinks the other is crazy. In every relationship, there's one who suffers from ideas without process, and one who thinks organization is fun. One who wants something the other does not, one who doesn't care about being sexy, one who wants to stay home and watch a movie, one who wants to board a shuttle to another galaxy, one who wants to tend a garden, one who wants to scream, one who still remembers their multiplication tables by heart, and one who sometimes wants to punch the other in the face. In every relationship, the seeds of creation and destruction grow together towards some dramatic annihilation. If you can hold on through that, you'll have a relationship where one says, I love you, and the other says, I love you too, and they both really mean it.
Oh, dear. All right, I'm going to bum everybody right out.
Yay.
Well, I can't help it, you know. I worked on a series, and there you go. So in the U.S. and in Europe too, we judge the African family thinking they have too many children, but hundreds of thousands of them have been lost, and the village mourns everyone. This is from the Congo series. Stand Up Love. 1. Terror tactics down the road won't stop this send-off dressed like its second birthday. Baby boy in seersucker jacket and bow tie, fancy checkered shirt ready for his party, his bitty black nose stuffed with cotton, lacy drapes keeping flies off auntie's swarm with cousins, guard his soul, the 26 women and the children cram the brand new shack, no roof on it. Men outside unsteady drink like it's evening. Tiny coffin waits with them. Paint still tacky. Everybody shares the baby's funeral's expenses. A village heaps the money cobbled and food snatched in a daring run through the farm fields militia haunt. This final day of glory, nothing spared, though these people lost their homes to armies. No money. The mother could not pay the doctor. The United Nations hospital blocks away. Stand Up Love. 2. Waves intricately braid, each wig a statement. Tints, henna, and purple, piled pink, streaks bragging bobs, bronze, spectacular orange, bit of blue thread, shellac hairdo, helmets, the necks rolling, steamy drum beats, stomping feet fight to keep the Sunday best high heels on, pocketbooks from slipping, dresses sweaty, color opposes color, hips swivel, mismatching loud prints and amplified paisley, songs a traditional keening, hymns a celebration of sobs, the heaving altos moan, bosoms bounce on bellies lifting sky pointing, Lord, Lord, can you prop us up? Can you help us? The sopranos shrieking, Lord, it was not us crushed the black Madonnas. The Lord's resistance army punches skulls, tender Congo babies. pulverized mortar and pestle, we have lost how many children? See us, each as cherished. See this child. Stand up, love.